There's a certain fascination with stories that surround an apocalyptic or a post-apocalyptic future. From I Am Legend to The Matrix, and from The Hunger Games to WALL-E, there's no shortage of stories, of movies that we can watch or read that'll tell us how we might get to that depressing future. There are stories about this sort of future also found in the Bible. You can look at books like Ezekiel, Zechariah, Daniel, and the book of Revelation, all of which are classified as apocalyptic literature that deal with sort of these dramatic events that could or will happen in the future. Now, the thing about apocalyptic literature, if you dive into what it actually is that they're not concerned so much with the actual future as they are with us.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.
Apocalypses and post-apocalyptic worlds make for great stories. That's why people keep writing them. But the biblical authors who write in this style, and Jesus himself, aren't primarily concerned with the end of the world. They're concerned with us. They're concerned with our souls. Apocalypses in the Bible, like the book of Revelation, well, they arise out of situations often of oppression, moments where things seem dark, evil seems to be winning, and there's a temptation for those who are trying to follow God to feel like they should throw up their arms and just give up the whole thing. The book of Revelation, for instance, is written by the Apostle John, and he's trying to motivate Christians to stay faithful in a time of persecution because they might face imprisonment, which is exactly where John is writing from. He's imprisoned on the island of Patmos, or they might face death, which is what happened to all of the other apostles. And what John is encouraging the Christians to do is to stay faithful to God. Now, the thing is, when we look at the idea of the apocalypse, of somewhere at the end of the world, there are certain things that we know. There are certain things that we believe as Catholic Christians about this. The first is that we believe it's going to happen. UCAT tells us that the last judgment will take place at the end of the world, at the second coming of Christ. The truth will come plainly to light. Our thoughts, our deeds, our relationship with God and other men, nothing will remain hidden. We will recognize the ultimate meaning of creation, comprehend God's marvelous ways for the sake of our salvation, and finally receive also an answer to the question of why evil can be so powerful if God, in fact, is the Almighty. Now, when will the end come? Well, Jesus offers some clues. He says in Matthew 24, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes. People will be persecuted. In some ways, you might say this is just another ordinary day in the life of the world, because a few verses later, he goes on to say, about that day and hour, no one knows. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. So for Christians who read and who hear these stories of apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic movies, or who read the passages in the Bible that tell of this end, what do we need to remember? Well, the first thing we need to remember is that we're all going to die. I'm going to die, and you're going to die. That end is going to come, and it doesn't have to be apocalyptic. There's 100 ordinary ways in which I could face the end today. But the second thing to remember is that it's not something you need to be afraid of. The person you're going to see on the other side of this life is Jesus. And if seeing Jesus scares you, well, then I think there's two possibilities there. One is that you need to stop and look at who Jesus is, because he's not someone we should be afraid of. Or there's some area of your life that you need to remedy or that you need to change. Something that you're doing that you know you shouldn't be, that makes you afraid to encounter Jesus now. We do not know the day or the hour. We need to be ready. Because thirdly, at the moment of death, that comes judgment. And that judgment, as I've talked about in another video, is not about God sitting there and saying you need to be this tall to get into heaven, you need to be this good to get into heaven. The Catechism of the Catholic Church talks about hell as a self-imposed punishment. It's based on what we choose, what we do with this life. And God loves us enough to let us make that choice for ourselves. Because at the end of our life, at the evening of our life, we are judged by the way in which we chose to love or not to love. You go back to the story that Jesus tells about the Last Judgment. He says, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. And he speaks about people who are lonely or hungry or naked or in need or in prison. Did we minister? Did we serve their needs? Those who have no room, no concern for those who are in need around them, they show a selfish, self-centered heart. Those who welcome the broken and needy, reflect hearts who recognize the fact that they are broken and needy, that they need God, that they need love and care and compassion at times. So as we come to the end of the church year, as we hear readings that are all about the end, don't be afraid. Yeah, we're all going to die. Yeah, death is going to bring with it a moment of judgment, and that'll determine where we spend eternity. That is a serious question. But at the end of our life, we are going to be judged by our love. And if there's something that you need to change to better love God or to better love those around you, well, these readings, these movies, these stories, it's a reminder to do something about it.